baseball broke its 10-game losing streak this weekend at Northern Illinois. But can they keep the wins coming this week against Findlay and Miami?
Plus, the Final Four has been set. We'll go over UK's narrow win against Notre Dame and what to expect this weekend.
And the WCHA had high expectations going into the NCAA hockey tournament, but fell short in just the first round. We'll talk about who's left heading to Boston for the Frozen Four. All this and more coming up right here on BG24 Sports.
You won't get anywhere else. This is BG24 Sports.
Welcome to BG24 Sports. I'm Katie Wernke.
And I'm Terry Lash. And the baseball team traveled to DeKalb, Illinois to face the Huskies this weekend of Northern Illinois. They lost on Friday and the first game on Saturday, but finally got their first MAC win of the season and the second of the doubleheader on Saturday.
They absolutely did. They finally broke that 10-game losing streak. If we take a look at some of the stats from the weekend, the Falcons were 1-2 on the weekend. They had 6 errors on this weekend, but little turnaround from before. 21 hits. That's more than we've seen in a few of these games, and also 13 runs.
Yeah, and most of that came in that victory. They had 8 runs in the victory. Finally getting some bats on the ball, something we have not seen in that 10-game losing streak you were talking about, Katie.
Absolutely. The second game on Saturday was really where the Falcons came out. Trey Keegan went 3 for 4. He had 2 RBIs. He had 1 home run. So we really are, we finally have seen Trey Keegan, who leads the team in the batting average, come out a little bit and get some hits on board.
Yeah, it was like he was unleashed in that second game on Saturday. 0 for 3 in the first game, 0 for 3 in the first game on Saturday, and then finally getting those 3 hits in the second of the doubleheader on Saturday, including that big long shot home run. Hopefully this gets his bat right on the right track.
Hopefully. The Falcons had 8 hits this weekend, and like we said, that 1 home run. So hopefully it's back on track, but if we take a look at the last 10 games, it's not been easy for the Falcons. You see all of those losses. Their last win prior to this weekend was March 10th against Bucknell in the Russ Matt Invitational. So it's been a long time since the Falcons have earned a win.
And that is a lot of L's in that column, Katie. And just look at the MAC play. It wasn't until the last game on Saturday where they finally able to get the W. Really slow start out of the gates for the Falcons, much slower than the team probably anticipated. We know they're a young squad, but it's still taking much longer than we'd hoped for the turnaround.
Absolutely. And if we take a look at their upcoming game against Findlay, it's sort of even across the board there. Bowling Green has a few more hits per game. Slugging percentage is a little higher, and so is their on-base percentage. But Findlay is also right there with Bowling Green.
And Findlay, a team that's a division lower than Bowling Green, so this is a game that the Falcons should get the victory in. But as we've seen this year, you can't take any gains for granted. BG allowing 10.2 hits per game, a really high margin, 5.68 ERA for the Falcons, almost giving up 6 runs per contest. You need a lot of run support to overcome that, and the Falcons haven't been getting it.
No, they absolutely have not. In their first 6 games on the season, Bowling Green earned 45 runs, and in the last 11 games, they have just gotten 38 runs.
Wow.
So the runs have really been not in Bowling Green's favor lately.
Absolutely not. That is a crazy statistic, Katie.
Absolutely.
Just the Falcons, their bats have been cooled off ever since the start of the season.
Yep.
And when we come back, we'll talk a little bit of college hoops as the Final Four is set. Stay right here with us.
Welcome back. The Final Four is set in the NCAA tournament. Michigan State had that upset against Oklahoma. So we have Michigan State, Duke, Wisconsin, and UK. Let's take a look at the bracket from the weekend. Like I said, we have those 4 teams and a big game for the Spartans. Huge game.
They got that victory over Louisville this weekend. The 7th seed Spartan, the only non-1 seed to make the Final Four. You cannot count against Tom Izzo in March. You got to watch out for the Spartans. They're just such a well-coached team, and we saw this weekend in an overtime victory against the Cardinals.
Absolutely, and there were some other close games too, not necessarily close in score, but close in the rankings. We have UK, Notre Dame, Wisconsin, Arizona, and then Duke and Gonzaga. A time in the NCAA tournament just last week where we didn't know if the top seeds were going to make it through to the Final Four, and it looks like 3 of them have.
Yeah, it seems like the upsets subsided after the first couple of rounds, and the teams that were at the top all season long rose to the top, as we saw there, the Gonzagas, Arizonas, Wisconsin's, Kentucky's of the world all being there in the bracket at the end. Only team crashing the party is the Spartans.
Absolutely, but let's take it to UK and Notre Dame. This was much closer of a game than many thought it would be. Almost went into overtime if Notre Dame had made the last shot at the buzzer, but 68-66. Let's take a look at some of these stats here. UK really close all across the board, steals, rebounds, but Kentucky dominated in blocks.
Well, they have that interior presence with Willie Cauley-Stein and Karl Anthony Towns and Dakari Johnson that Notre Dame just couldn't match up with. Notre Dame liking to drive inside, throw up some shots from in the paint, and they're swatted away, and that's really made a difference in this game for the Wildcats.
Absolutely. We take a look at some of the top scorers. We have Karl Anthony Towns with 25 points. He really dominated in this game. Devin Booker with 10, Trey Lyles with 9, Andrew Harrison with 7, and Willie Cauley-Stein with 6. 15 points came from the bench from 4 players. That's a big number from your bench players.
Well, Kentucky just has such depth on this team. They start 5, but they're really 9 deep where they can play any of those starting 9, and they feel like they're capable starters. They could be starters and stars on any other team in America, but they're on the bench for Kentucky. And we saw it right there with Devin Booker. He comes off the bench. He has the second most points on the team. It's just really hard to stop.
Absolutely. Willie Cauley-Stein was a little below his normal points per game. He normally averages just over 9. He only had 6. And Aaron Harrison was also down from his average points per game. So there were some players on UK who weren't up to their normal potential that they have, but they still found a way to win. And that is what UK does, is even if they're down, they find ways to win.
We did see some mortality out of UK. This is the first time in the tournament. It seems like they could be beaten, but like you said, Katie, the sign of a true champion is winning games you shouldn't win. And Kentucky did that this weekend. They pulled it out, a very gritty victory. We saw with their title run last season, just win game winner after game winner in close games. Clutch free throws at the end, and UK moves on.
Absolutely, but let's take a look now. They are playing Wisconsin, another #1 seed. And pretty close again, but UK dominating in those blocks. The average points given up by Kentucky is 53.9. Average scored by Wisconsin, 72.8. This is going to be a very close game, and one reason why I think that as well is because we finally have a team in Wisconsin that can match Kentucky to the size of their players.
You're right, and this is a rematch from last year's Final Four, and we have to think about a Wisconsin team for the first time in their history making the Final Four consecutive years. They're going to be very motivated. Frank Kaminsky, one of the finalists for the Naismith Awards, the college basketball's best player. This could be his last game. You got to love that matchup inside with him and Karl Anthony Towns of Kentucky. It's going to be a great game, and I'm really excited to see how it turns out.
Oh, it absolutely is. Now, another big upset this weekend. Michigan State made it to the Final Four, taking down Oklahoma and then Louisville, a 3 and 4 seed. So let's take a look at their stats against Louisville.
Yeah, you got to beware the Ides March for the Spartans. They won this game in overtime. You got to talk about Denzel Valentine, one of the best starters on the team, and it's a team effort between him and Brandon Dawson. 41 rebounds total of the team, 5 steals, 7 blocks. This is a squad that really is playing their best basketball at the time they need it most.
Absolutely, and I think what hurt Louisville is Wayne Blackshear was their leading scorer with 28 points. But after Blackshear, you have 13 points coming from 5 other players, after Harrell and Rosier. And 13 points from 5 other players combined is not enough to really, you sort of have to spread the wealth in this basketball game. You can't rely on just a few players to get it done. And I think that's what ended up hurting them in the end.
They just had no bench presence. When you talk about Michigan State, you talk about Brian Forbes, who came up with 14 big points off the bench. It gave them a lift that Louisville just didn't have. Louisville with an 8-point lead at the half, and the Spartans just finished so much stronger than them, and that's why they continued that momentum into overtime, which allowed them to get the victory.
Absolutely, and we talked about UK scoring from the bench. Michigan State had 26 points from the bench. So another a team with depth that could give Duke a run for their money. But let's take a look at the upcoming game matchup. Duke averages 80.6 points per game, which is 4th in the nation, while Michigan State averages just 71.9. Now that may not seem like that big of a margin, but when it comes to March Madness, that is a big margin.
And we're talking about a Duke team that is playing very, very good basketball. They weren't playing their best against Gonzaga, and they still got a big victory. This is the team that I think everyone's thinking gives the best shot at taking down Kentucky if they were to meet in the national championship. We have a Michigan State team that plays great in March, but I don't know if it's great enough to take down the Blue Devils.
Absolutely. We've talked about Tom Izzo. He is 1-6 in the Final Four. I think this is going to be a battle between coaches. Izzo is 1-6 in the Final Four. Coach K is 8-12 in the Final Four. So Coach K might have a leg up against Izzo, but we'll have to find out this weekend.
It'll be interesting.
Absolutely. Now coming up, hockey also has their Frozen Four set in place, but no WCHA teams are in. When we come back, we'll talk about what to expect this weekend.
And the Minnesota State Mankato Mavericks had a really tough struggle this weekend in the NCAA tournament as the hockey tournament got underway, and the WCHA as a whole just really struggled. If we look at the bracket right here, you see in the first round both teams knock out right away, Katie.
Absolutely. Michigan Tech lost in the first round, and so did Minnesota State. We have our Frozen Four set, though. We have Boston, North Dakota, Omaha, and Providence. There are only 2 seeded teams left in this tournament, the number 2 and number 3 seed in the country, where Miami also lost in the first round. They were the 4th seed. But let's talk about this WCHA woes here. Minnesota State was expected to go rather far in this tournament, the number 1 seed. They were number 1 in the country for a long time, and they lose in the first round to Rochester.
You're not kidding, Katie. This is the first time in the history since they've tried the new bracket that the number 1 overall seed lost in the tournament, and Minnesota State just such a disappointing effort. This is such a great team all year long. If you look at some of the stats from the game against Rochester Institute of Technology, only 1 goal for the Mavericks on 34 shots. This is a team that was scoring at a high pace all season long, but did not show up when they needed it most.
Absolutely. Stephen Williams, Minnesota State's goalie, when they played Bowling Green, he allowed 5 goals in 2 games. So we sort of have seen him come apart before in the season. He had 35 saves that weekend. But Jordan Ruby, their goalie, only allows 3.6 goals per game, 33 shots per game. So he did a fantastic job of making sure that Minnesota State did not get up to that 3.6 goals per game or 4 goals, 3 goals, however many. Yeah. But he did a great job at making sure that he stopped Minnesota State from advancing. And both teams are knocked out now from the WCHA.
Yeah, you're talking about a Michigan Tech team that was looking on fire. They had more wins than any other team in college hockey going into the tournament. They dismantled Bowling Green in the WCHA Final 5, and then they just laid an egg in the first round against St. Cloud State.
They absolutely did. But enough of the WCHA. We're going to go to the Frozen Four, Boston and North Dakota, the 2 last seeded teams left in this tournament. And Boston has that 27-7-5 record. North Dakota 29-9-3. Boston allows 3.8 goals per game, or they score rather 3.8 goals per game, and they allow 2.3. So not too many, but North Dakota is right up there with them.
And this is a matchup that I think is safe to say, not to take away from Omaha and Providence, but this is the national championship. The winner between Boston and North Dakota is going to win the national championship, in my opinion. We're talking about a North Dakota team that has been right around number 1 all season long. They play very good defense, as you see right there, that only 2.2 goals per game given up. It's going to be very tough to beat the Bison.
It absolutely is. Now for Boston, a fun fact here. They score most often in the 3rd period. What period does North Dakota give up the most goals in? The 3rd period. North Dakota scores the most goals in the 2nd period. And take a guess, Terry. What period do you think Boston gives up the most goals in?
I'm going to say the 2nd.
The 2nd period. So really, this matchup is going to be very even. I think it's going to be a very good game to watch.
It's a bit of a chess match going on between the periods and goals given up. But like you said, Katie, very exciting to see how this one's going to turn out.
Absolutely. Now, when we come back, it's our Hot or Not, including March Madness, baseball, and a little tennis. Stay with us. Welcome back. It's time for a little game called Hot or Not. Terry and I have a topic, and we give you our opinion on whether they are
hot
or not. This week, we have topics from March Madness all the way to tennis. But first, we are going to get it started with BG Baseball. They snapped their 10-game losing streak, but Are they hot or not?
They are not hot, Katie. They are not even remotely near any microwaves in their vicinity. They have gotten one win in their last 10 games. It was a very good win this Saturday in the doubleheader, but before that, we've just seen so many runs given up, poor pitching performances, poor hitting. It's just been really rough for the Falcons.
Absolutely. I'm going to agree with you and say that they are not hot. They have the potential to get there, though. They play Findlay this week. Findlay is right even with them schedule-wise. But then they play Miami of Ohio. Miami of Ohio is a tough team in the MAC, so I think they're going to stay not for a while, but they have the potential to be up there. But can they take that potential and run with it? Not sure. But now we're going to move over to NCAA basketball. Michigan State, are they hot enough to beat Duke?
No. They are not hot enough to beat Duke. I think Tom Izzo is one of the best coaches in the NCAA, but I think Mike Krzyzewski is even better coach, and there's just more talent on that Duke Blue Devil squad. I can't imagine Jahlil Okafor probably going to be the player of the year not leading his team to the national championship.
Absolutely. I have to go with not as well for the same reason almost as you. I think it's the Tom Izzo Coach K matchup, and Coach K is very tough to beat in the postseason tournament. He's 86-26 in the NCAA tournament, while Izzo is 46-16. Not bad, but you can almost double those wins with Coach K. So I think Coach K is definitely he's definitely practiced in the tournament, and that will give him the win on this weekend.
Katie.
Now, moving over to some hockey. The Columbus Blue Jackets are in a 6-game winning streak. Hot or not?
Not. And here's why. 6-game winning streak, great, but their playoff chances are not hot, and that's what it matters about. 13 points behind the wild card right now. With only 7 games left, they're not reaching those 13 points to come back. They've had an average season up to this point, and that's why they're just not.
You know what, Terry? I'm going to disagree with you. I'm going to go with hot. The Blue Jackets are hot. They're on that 6-game winning streak. From February to March, they had a 9-game losing streak, but they are 13 points behind the wild card. There's 7 games left on the season, and within those 7 games, they still play the Penguins. They play the Islanders, the Devils, the Rangers, all teams in the Metro Division. So they have a chance to really increase that point total and possibly make a run for it, maybe. But that 6-game winning streak alone puts them in the hot level. Now, moving over to tennis, Rafael Nadal. He has had 1 singles title this year. Hot or not?
Not. I love Rafa as the next screaming teenager, but we're talking about his laurels here. We're talking about a guy who's won so much in the past. We're not seeing it right now. Only 1 singles win this season. Just got lost in the 3rd round of the ATP Miami Open. This is a guy that we're talking about his pedigree, not how he's playing at the current moment. All
right, you know what? I'm going to be that screaming teenager. Rafael Nadal is hot while he has not won lately. What is coming up, Terry? It is clay season, and Rafael Nadal is not called the king of clay for nothing. We have the ATP World Tour coming up in Monte Carlo, Madrid, Barcelona. He's going to win those. He's dominant on clay, and then that leads to the French Open, and Rafael Nadal has won 9 singles titles in the French Open. So he is definitely hot, but nice round of hot or not, Terry. Little disagreement, little agreement, but, you know. All right, well, now when we come back, we have our picks of the week for the game, so stay with us. Welcome back. We have 4 games this week to give you our picks of the week. Baseball, March Madness, and now NCAA hockey. And what makes our picks better than putting a little friendly competition into it? We have my picks, Terry's, and Studio Crew's picks for each game. Each week we keep track of our records. And after last week, I'm still in the middle now. I fell back down a little bit. I have an 8-8 record. Terry is in the lead at 11-5. Put your arms down, Terry. And Studio Crew is last with 6-10. But Terry, I'm going to get you this week. I'm feeling my picks are pretty strong. First pick, Bowling Green baseball. I'm going to go with Bowling Green. I think that 1 win against Northern Illinois made them hungry. They want to win again, and Findlay is the team to do so.
I'm going to say they're not going to win this weekend. We're going to have the Findlay Oilers coming up to BG and taking down the Falcons. I'm going to go with the upset in this one.
Okay, well, Studio Crew also is on my side, picking Bowling Green. So I guess we'll find out on that one tomorrow. Now, UK and Wisconsin. I definitely have to go with Kentucky. I think that narrow win against Notre Dame really showed this team that maybe they aren't invincible. So I think they're going to come out strong against Wisconsin, and I think they're going to take the win and make it to the finals.
Yeah, Kate, I think you're absolutely right. We're talking about a Kentucky team that now faced a little bit of adversity, finally got that tough win, and now they're just going to propel them to move on against the Badgers.
Absolutely. Now, Studio Crew, they are going against the tide, and they are picking Wisconsin. Not a bad pick, considering they're both #1 seeds. but we'll see. We'll see. They did pick West Virginia against UK last week, so they were wrong on that one. But now, Duke and Michigan State. I have to go with Duke. I think Duke is too strong. Again, it's the Coach K, Tom Izzo rival, and I think that Coach K is too strong, and the Duke Blue Devils are going to win it all.
I agree with you, Katie. I got Justice Winslow and Jaleel Okafor. I'm not picking against those two guys until they get to the finals. Going with the Blue Devils.
All right, and Studio Crew has Michigan State. Another upset. Maybe they'll just
trying to get back into that record column.
They are. They're trying to maybe at least get to 800 or 500, not 800. That won't happen. But now, moving over to hockey, we have the NCAA Frozen Four. We're going with Boston and North Dakota. I'm going to pick Boston. I think that the Boston really wants this one. I think they're going to give a good fight to North Dakota, and I think it'll be a good game, but I think Boston will pull it out.
I think it'll be a great game. I'm going to go with North Dakota. I think it's the offense of Boston versus the defense of North Dakota. I'm going with the defense and goaltending of North Dakota, and I think they're going to win the national championship.
Okay, and Studio Crew. On my side again, they're going with Boston. Maybe they're not so good on their basketball picks, but they seem to maybe be okay. Maybe they'll be okay with hockey. But I don't foresee Studio Crew beating us for anything.
They're pretty far down there at this point.
They really are. They really are. But what do you think out of these 4 games is the real game to watch out of all of them?
I think it's very exciting, of course, the NCAA tournament. Everyone's going to be watching those 2 games, both great games. But I'm really looking forward to that hockey game. We got North Dakota and Boston. This is pretty much the national championship. These are 2 teams that have both been #1 in the standings, and they've both been top 3, 4 all year long. This is not just one team that's come up, and it's just been 2 of the top standouts of the entire NCAA.
While I agree with you that hockey is very exciting, and it is going to be an extremely good game, I'm going to have to go with that UK and Wisconsin game because I think everybody was shocked and glued to their televisions when UK was almost taken down by Notre Dame.
I know I was.
It gave them a little scare, and I think that is going to be a very good game. I also think that gave Wisconsin an edge to really want to go out and beat UK because if they think, hey, Notre Dame can, why can't we?
That's a good point, Katie.
Absolutely. So that's all today for BG24 Sports. Follow us on Twitter at BG24 Sports now for breaking scores and news, and follow us on Instagram at BG24 Sports.
Plus, check out our website, BG24news.org, for more videos. I'm Terry Lash.
And I'm Katie Warnke. Have a great night.